So I set up a patch that should be somewhat familiar if you watched the other videos in this series, although I haven't shown this exact patch yet, but it's another patch that can produce several clave rhythms. It can produce the rumba clave rhythm, the son clave rhythm, and the bossa nova clave rhythm. And in this one, we have this nibbler controlling this nibbler, so whenever this nibbler's gate 4 is high, we add 6 extra to this nibbler, which is by default when this nibbler's low, adding 2, and then when it's high, it's adding 2 plus 6, which is 8. And this nibbler, depending on what we set its add to, will select which clave pattern we hear. So I'm just going to unmute this real quick so we can see that when this is set to 4, this one's high, we hear the son clave pattern. And when this is set to 2, we hear the rumba clave pattern. And when this is set to 5, we hear the bossa nova clave pattern. And you might ask, well, what if it's set to something else? And you hear all kinds of other ones. Like, for example, if you set it to 8, it's very boring. It's just divide by 8. 2 beats every 16 bars. If you set it to 1, it's like some strange other pattern, but something that you could still really like. But you might be thinking now, well, that's all great, but what if I could change the rhythms interactively? How would I do that? I'll show you in a moment. All right, so you may notice something else has appeared. The zero control. It's an outboard sequencer, maybe my favorite all-time outboard sequencer, just because of how kind of analog it feels. And we're going to have this controlling what pattern this nibbler plays. But how are we going to do that if all we have are these gate inputs to change its add and the gate switches to change its add, right? How are we going to change what it's adding? Well, the secret here is the bit fold. Really, you could use any analog to digital converter, but this is part of the Schlappi logic system, and it's also excellent at doing this task. Now, before we get started, I'm going to give you the high-level concept, which is basically we use the bit fold to turn the voltages produced by the make noise into 4 gates that then will get patched all one by one into the other nibbler. Great, simple so far, right? The only thing that you have to know in advance is we can't take the voltage directly out because the bit fold's expecting 0 to 10 volts and this produces 0 to 5 volts. So a simple little trick, if you ever want to get double your voltage exactly, is to take a precision adder and patch the same signal into both of its slots, and then take the output of that adder, the A plus B output, and we'll put it into the inject of the bit fold. The inject of the bit fold doesn't do any scaling. It doesn't do the multiplication against the CV input or the fixed voltage. That would happen in if you put it into the normal input. It bypasses the VCA part of the bit fold. Okay, so now in fast motion, we are going to hook each one of these gate outputs out to one of these gate inputs, so then whatever number is showing here will be the add set to that nibbler. All right, so now if you look at the lights of these gates, I currently have this channel selected, and as I turn this knob, you'll see the lights change on the bit fold, and then you'll see the lights that are lit up there are the same lights that are lit up in the gate ins. So remember previously I said if we set this to 2, and that will be rumba clave, and then 4, that will be son clave, right? So let's listen to what happens when we turn this back on. Now we have to reset the 2 nibblers whenever we change the step. So I'll take the step change out and I'll patch that into the reset of both of these nibblers. So we have, first at 2 we have the rumba clave, then 4 we have son clave, and then at 5 we have the bossa nova clave. And then I've programmed some other patterns down here that we can just listen to. The boring 1 beat per 8. There's no name for this pattern, I don't think. This is just kind of another slow one. And then this one, I think this is probably a repeat of one of the earlier ones. But you can just turn them and find out different ones that might be cool. Yeah, that's like, see, this is a totally novel one. I think that one's pretty, that's pretty excellent. But we can take this even a little further. So for instance, what we can do is we can take out some of these other outputs and use this to control things like perhaps the clock divider. So maybe if I take this output and use it to change the ratio of our clock divider, then we can have certain ones playing in double or triple time or quadruple time. So normal time, and then that kind of has this weird galloping sound. And we can keep taking this even further. For instance, we can take another channel, and what I like to do is have this channel control whether or not this nibbler adds or subtracts. When you, in subtraction mode generally, the nibblers have long gates that are high when you listen to the carry output, so it kind of changes the color. So let's listen again. So again, this is when subtract is low, and then let's listen to one where it's high. All right, so let's just jam around for a little bit. I've connected the second nibbler stepped output to make a little melody line. So that sounds a little something like this, which I really, really love. The noon has some awesome sounds if you can find the sweet spots. And then with the bass line. And then the cool thing about the nibblers also is you can adjust their phases to get different melodies. But I really like this one, so let's jam around with this a little bit, playing this one. You could play through all of them one by one. Which is kind of funny. Yeah, you can just play around and have fun. Well, I hope you enjoyed this, and I'll come back next time.